Yeah, if you do right, you buy right land and you do right development, so the downside risk can be protected here. And there is a difference. See, when you talk about residential, commercial, those looks good outside as well. But warehouse, because it's a box structure outside, though it has changed drastically, but the most of the work happen inside that box. So fear of missing out, I think, is the biggest thing which people think that if they miss opportunity today, it will not come back. You should always follow fundamentals when you do an investment. Location should be right, the infra should be there, the demand is from which segment it is coming in, and what are the prospect of that location. Cost which you are entering should make sense. Once you do these things right, you generally tend to avoid capital erosion.
What is more scarier for you, missing out a good investment or a investment going bad?
Investment going bad is more fear. It gives me more goosebumps in that sense, because the right supply is missing. There is a supply which is there, but whether that will be capable of serving the customer in near term or future term is a challenge.
Today I am in conversation with Mr. Manish Jain, the driving force behind Pragati Group's growth and vision. Manish is an investment professional. After taking investment decision in residential, commercial real estate, Manish is now steering Pragati Group's future course of action. Manish, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Balash, for
Manish,
having this conversation with me.
thanks. After spending almost over 1.5 decades into residential real estate, retail real estate, office spaces, and the other commercial segments, what prompted you to come into the warehousing segment?
So, plus, it's a journey, you can say. When I started, I was an engineer, then did my MBA and wanted to be a consultant in metal and mining, but ended up in real estate. And बोलते ना खून लग गया. So from that time, I'm in real estate. It started with consulting valuation, and then during that transaction period, and then I got an opportunity to work with a boutique investment firm where we started doing investment in residential mainly, and then commercial was part of that. During that journey, I learned how investment professional work, what they look in an investment, and then warehousing was a segment which I never knew much about it, but it was growing. And then the opportunity came itself, where I got chance to meet with Colonel Yadav, who been steering this what you can say warehousing industry from the start once he took the early retirement, and then got to meet him, understood how it has been happening and how the industry is shaping in a big way, and then got the opportunity to be part of Pragati Group, where the idea is to expand warehousing and industrial footprint for Pragati Warehousing once they form a platform with Singapore-based fund. And from there onwards, the initial 6 to 12 months was a learning period, and then the basics remain same for every investment. So your fundamentals should be right. Every industry or asset class, you can say, have certain fundamentals, and once you learn and don't deviate from them, that is where then it becomes your you can say go to model. And as far as warehousing or industrial concern, it's a huge segment which was untapped, and with government push, make in India, and so many infrastructure development coming in, this sector is looking promising, and I think it will grow bigger and bigger with China plus strategy, or you can say the India is becoming a global player in terms of either manufacturing the commodities or goods in India. So that's where I think this is a sector to be looked in.
Now that since you have started talking about sectors, now as far as warehousing is concerned, what we know in general is warehousing are godowns, are boxes. So how has it changed over the years? What is new age warehousing?
So see, that is how we've been grown. You, I, and most of the people has seen go downs, and that was only for storage without considering what's been stored. It is just you store there, you take out and substitute. But during that phase only, when once you store, the storing has to be done in a certain way. Once it was only used for certain products, then it changed because every industry with consumerism increasing, e-commerce coming in, they those become centers for you can say distribution and storing in a particular way. It was not just a truck came in and just you load it and goes out. There is a sorting happening. There are lakhs of products which are getting stored in single warehouse. So that requires a different mindset to develop. And then the compliance came in, that how these boxes to be developed. you know uh, and there is a difference. See, when you talk about residential, commercial, those looks good outside as well, but warehouse, because it's a box structure outside, though it has changed drastically, aesthetics have changed, but the most of the work happen inside that box. And that box should be compliant, should have efficiencies where tenant can move in, move out. It should have compliance terms of fire. It should have compliance of air circulation. The way it is developed, it should not wear and tear in short span of time. Today's warehouse, which new age we are talking, we are developing these asset for next 50, 60 years with all the compliance related to not only fire, but these buildings are now classified as green buildings. Most of our developments are IGBC or gold or platinum certified. That means there is a whole lot of process which has gone in, that how these buildings which are called godowns should be developed, and the perception changes. And I think it has changed a lot in last 10 years time.
Now, since it has changed, how has Pragati Group's functioning changed since you have been steering the company?
So, see, the company when I joined, it has formed a platform with a foreign capital. And earlier it was operated by Colonel Jitendra Yadav and his team, which was mainly focused on NCR. They did some work, across India, but focused here because capital was a constraint. You do certain things when you have a capital. Once it has come in, the first target was to set up a team. Now we have full-fledged, almost 40-member team looking at specific functions capable in their domain, and then started expanding pan India. So once these processes are set up, we are now fully equipped to develop these warehouses pan India. We have developed our know-how because every state in India works differently. So that in last 3 years, you can say we have developed. We are fully equipped to do development across India. And these, so once we came in, so we have set up all HR processes, finance processes, investment process, that how you underwrite a deal, because it is easier to say that this looks good, but when you put everything on paper, does it make sense? So that has been our process driven or approach, because at the end of the day, stakeholders need to know what they are going to make out of any investment they do.
You have taken in your career lots of decision in real estate investment when it comes to residential investment, retail or office spaces investment. Now, how real estate investment is different from in warehousing is different from these segments.
So there are, fundamentally investment decisions are similar, but the asset class when it slightly changes, so certain parameters changes. The Because we generally do aggregation of land, which is where our efficiency comes in from a capital perspective, that requires longer time horizon. So we generally do greenfield development. So the land aggregation, the challenges from a revenue side, because these are lands outside city limits, right? So revenue challenges, countering those, what type of calls we can take, and then that land comes in, so that sometimes take a 3 months to a year or more than year as well. And then there are compliances which are for outside city, there are different compliances which need to be fulfilled. Once those comes in, that timeline generally becomes 1.5 years to 2 years time. Whereas the same timeline, because when you do a residential commercial in city limits, these are smaller land parcels. Most of the time these lands are, you know, uh, most of the time the lands are allotted by governments, or you buy a private land which is smaller, single holding. So your legal challenges are lesser. And so once you know how nuances work from a revenue and legal side for agricultural land, that is where it takes most of the time. Post that, because you are using a equity capital, so that equity capital should make some returns. So the speculative risk is higher in residential commercial, because the per square feet prices are much better, or the revenue side of it, though the risk is also high. So in warehousing, your returns are not exorbitant, but you can say they are certain. So, and the lose, if you do right things fundamentally, losing money should not be a concern, because you will make returns that might change slightly, but the downside risk is much better protected once you do a fundamental investment in warehousing.
Which means in warehousing, the returns might be low, but it is relatively much less riskier.
Yeah, if you do right, you buy right land, uh, and you do right development, so the downside risk can be protected here.
Now, what is the, since you have investment in all the segments of real estate, tell us about one myth of real estate investment.
So fear of missing out, I think, is the biggest thing which people think, that if they miss opportunity today, it will not come back. My sense is that you should always follow fundamentals when you do an investment. So if you have, 4 or 5 fundamentals which needs to be checked, that location should be right, the infra should be there, the demand is from which segment it is coming in, and what are the prospect of that location. Once, and then the cost which you are entering should make sense. Once you do these things right, you generally tend to avoid capital erosion, you can say. So that's my fundamental thing, that you should first protect capital and then see how returns you are making, because a good location at a high price, which looks, it's a fantastic location, and then the price you pay might not justify uh, the investment. Whereas, a lower cost at a far away location, where you don't know how much time it will take to develop, because the capital which we are using is a time bound capital. So the cycle should be played well, that in 3 to 5 years time it should be operational, and you have tenants you have occupied, because we are not selling spaces, so it's with me, so I have to lease it. So that becomes a paramount parameter. So a good opportunity lost because it was not making sense, I always make peace with it. It is not necessary that you have missed something. So that's the biggest thing I think. People think when up cycles are there, they keep investing thinking that it will keep going. And it's that saying goes that the person who buys last might get stuck before the cycle gets turned. So you have to be wary of that fact.
But what is more scarier for you, missing out a good investment or a investment going bad?
An investment going bad is more fear. It gives me more goosebumps in that sense, because once you protect your downside risk and you don't make bad investment, one bad investment in your portfolio can erode all the returns of that portfolio. So making a bad investment is the first thing which I avoid.
Okay, now when you look at a potential warehouse investment, what is there? What are the top 3 things on your checklist?
I briefly touched when we were speaking earlier, that first, the location, the connectivity, the infrastructure today and the future, and what are the drivers for end user to come there. Okay, and is that demand sustainable? So once that is sorted, the second then comes the underwriting of that price. And price of, then I say price, that what type of cost will go in and what type of revenue will come in, and what is the time frame of that. So once that is sorted, we go for that deal, let's try and do it, subject to all the diligence coming out clear. So these are the three or four things which we should look at when we look for a deal.
What has been the most toughest or challenging investment decisions so far in your career?
Uh, uh, Frankly, every deal which we have done has thrown different challenges. Uh, and then, sometime in hindsight, that if you know less, you might make an investment and then realize you have made, there is some gap. And then, sometimes Cosmos plays well, and you see it might take 6 months and you solve that issue. And after making that investment, I realized that though it has been done, there was a gap which we have done, which was there when we did a deal, but all went well, and I think that's has become a best investment today. But your question if was that what is the toughest
Toughest decision,
decisions
yeah.
you have taken? So toughest decision is that sometimes you have to take a call. There might not sufficient data to support, but then being in market with your experience of seeing 2 3 cycles, uh, sometimes you should take that call that this will turn out good, where most of the people with data might say that it should not become a challenge. So for any new location to get in, you have to take certain calculative risk, and to convince for that to all the stakeholder is the toughest task which we have to go through.
And in this segment, uh, what is what separates a great investment from a average warehouse?
So I think you are comparing a great asset with a average
Average.
warehouse. So see, there is nothing right and wrong, because there are people who are occupying, their needs are different. So average warehouse to a great asset, when I say the great asset should be made thinking a future in mind, which can cater to next, let's say, 30 to 50 years time. Because these assets, when you are creating, cost is, when you're putting, these are heavy capital expenditures. So asset should be creating thinking what can change in terms of building design. See, for me, the automation or AI is comes after I build the hard asset, right? So as Pragati, we are a hard asset builder, right? But those hard assets should be able to cater the needs of users, right? And that user need might have changed drastically today. The way you handle your material which are there, it's completely changed from manual to fully automatic today. And the tagging system, the fire requirement, the storing mechanism, so all that should be taken care when we build. So the new age, when I say assets are taking care of all these aspects, where these assets can then cater and can one more flexibility which we generally build is whether these assets can be modified in for future requirements. So that also we take care. And secondly, because earlier for these asset, the old go downs were built thinking, or the average asset, when you say, that was not human friendly. You can say people, their facilities or their needs were not taken care. Today, when we are building these new age asset, where we call blue collar, the the requirement has changed. You have to provide facilities for them to enjoy working there. So that has also changed, where we build our asset. When you go and feel that this is a park which has all the green areas, you can walk. The space which you are working is having all the required air circulation. You feel comfortable working there. All that has changed in new age assets, which was missing in earlier developments.
But technology, you're saying, has doesn't have much larger role to play in this particular segment.
It will. See, technology has changed everything. It will. But I'm saying everything today, let's say we talk about residential, commercial, the design has changed, the way it has been developed has changed. So the development has changed, but the hard asset has to be there still. So land has to be bought, which are clear. And then the development which you are doing, the hard asset will go changes, but not as drastically as, you know, other things can happen in other asset class or industry. So you have to still have that hard asset which is built on land.
And what kind of role AI is playing in your business?
So AI is changing the way we build. You know, they are suggesting how you can build fast and what type of things you look at when you build. And then with this coming in, the AI is also giving us idea what end user will want, right? That becomes more important. So when I think from my customer perspective, I make better buildings, right? What is his need? So with AI, what customer is needing, what's their, where they are serving, what type of things they are making, if they are manufacturing tenant or material or product they are making, or from a e-commerce or a consumer goods perspective, when they are storing, what are the needs they have which are driven by technologies. So it is definitely changing everything, and it will change further, because you can say it first impact the high revenue segment, it will come to us as well, for sure.
And when it comes to the demand supply scenario, the sector is adequately supplied as per the demand, or there is a supply demand supply mismatch right now?
So see, I think the mismatch is regarding the right supply, right? The right supply is missing. There is a supply which is there, but whether that will be capable of serving the customer in near term or future term is a challenge. So what we are building is thinking long term, and that demand is huge. I think the way India growing, the focus from government on infrastructure and industrial and warehousing, and the logistic policy also coming in, they want to reduce the cost of logistics in India. So all those parameters showing that there is a huge potential in this segment, and we should be able to contribute to India's growth the way we are building these asset, which is required for you to either do manufacturing, light manufacturing, or store your goods, because this allows the manufacturer or the end user to reduce their capital expenditure when they start on lease, because it is difficult to always put capital investment for land, build it, and because for in my opinion, the manufacturer or the businessman wants to reduce his capex, focus on operation and deliver the product. And for that requirement, I think there is a huge scope to develop right asset. And today it is in tier 1 cities. I think tier 2 cities are also catching up. So that will, I think, help. And the demand is huge, to answer your question.
Yeah, now, commercial and residential segments are considered to be more lucrative. Now, you have left those segments and come to the warehousing segment. What makes you more optimistic?
See, every asset class or a segment has, if we say it should be good things, so that has a different aspects of growth, the way these are getting developed. Obviously those segments are bigger, those asset class you can say bigger than what warehousing or industrial today, or you can say logistics today. But the way it is growing, I think if not that big, it has a huge potential to grow. And this is, I think, creating jobs for blue collar more, which is required for India, right? This provides jobs in beyond city limits. And once you create these assets, these migration which is happening to the large cities might reduce if we do it right. So from that perspective, we are creating infrastructure for employment in locations which are not serviced from employment perspective today. Government is also supporting certain areas where they are providing subsidies to develop certain asset in the certain locations, where once you provide develop, uh, this provide employment there. And manufacturers or the users today, not from a warehousing, because warehousing is only servicing the urban centers, but manufacturers are okay to look at these spaces which are better made, their capex is less, So the opportunity, I think, is looking really promising in this sector.
If you can give me any idea about how big the industry is and at what rate it is growing?
Today, if you see from a stock perspective, I can say we are around more than 400 to 500 million square feet of total space. Out of that, I think 50% today is around grade A space, which is having a very less vacancy. When we talk about certain cities have less than 5%, more or so it should be less than 10% overall vacancy, which is a very good number to say that this industry has a huge requirement. And from a perspective of growth, I think we are almost adding every year, and which should grow 50-60 million square feet a year. And and these square feet, when you turn into numbers, is huge, because per square feet cost today should be around 3,500 to 4,000 square feet overall cost. So then you do your maths. So it's a huge number which we are looking to grow this industry. So that's the cost, but the costs are going up. That is where we need, I think, support from the users as well as the government, that how to reduce this cost so that it becomes a more doable business from a perspective of what capital we are putting in. The return should also be aligned to that.
And what kind of policy changes that the industry is looking at?
The policy changes from, see, the only I think the land records in India are still not clear. We face a lot of issues. So if it can be digitized, so it reduces your entry time as well. And then from infra perspective, clarity on development, because you do announcement and nothing happens for years. So if we get a clarity, more concrete situation, that how much time it will take us to develop certain things, that gives better idea of development, instead of always doing speculative investment, because that's the nature where people play big role in speculative investment, and then see, and they want to make huge returns. But as a institutional player, our target is to develop asset which generate returns which are commensurate to what investment we are doing. We are not looking at exorbitant out returns perspective. So if that clarity comes in, the approval timelines, if which can be reduced. Today we don't know, it might, we say 6 months, generally it goes beyond a year as well. So if we can streamline those processes, because that system of single window is not really working, because still it needs that much time to get our permissions and then start construction. If that can be streamlined across locations in India, I think that will really help.
What kind of professionals is the industry wanting these?
The industry, see, it depends. If this industry can, this provides, I think, more employment to graduates. You have who have basic skills of uh, your digital knowledge, and then can look at supply chain element of that. And then if we are now building industrial assets, so what type of industry coming in, so those guys will buy. So but to answer your question differently, that warehousing require the same professionals as the other asset class, right? You need you know finance graduates, you need engineers, not that much, but more maybe civil engineers. We are not making manufacturing units, so but we need MEC guy, sorry, your PM guys who are then know your mechanical, electrical, all this. And with technology coming in, we need instrumentation guys. So all set of people which other industries need, we also need it. But the, you can say, the demand might be lesser here, but as it grows, the requirement of people will increase. And today, the way it is growing, there is a you know demand from such professionals who want, you can come in, join this segment from an investment side to operation side to construction side, and then the other professional are always common for legal, finance. So those always needs. So for a company, once you become big, you need all these. And sometime you only develop one asset, then you outsource everything, just build the asset and keep it. And these, some of these assets are also built by individuals to have that stable rental income. Because these are long term assets, you get lesser yield, uh, but these are, you can say, more predictable,
Stable incomes.
stable incomes.
So your message to the younger generation who are watching this and who want to make a profession, a career out in this particular industry?
It's interesting that people generally don't look at this industry because it's not, you can say, what looks fancy from outside, if I put that way. But definitely there are fundamentals. People should really look at this industry because all as others, this industry also has a huge potential. And for young generation, because today in today's generation, the things changes very fast, like with AI and all that. uh, and the way we have worked, I think people should come in, understand, put some time to understand fundamentals, give few years, and then they will realize that this industry is same than others. So people should be able to look this, the lucrativeness should might not be outside, but when you enter this industry, you will realize that there is a huge potential. So young generation or young people should also look logistic supply chain, which will grow for sure, manufacturing, and think about careers in these segments as well.
So had you not been in real estate, what you would have been?
uh, I'm basically a metallurgist engineer, so I was anyway doing was a process engineer. But down the line, I did my MBA and ended up here. If you ask me where I will be, I don't have that answer because what I'm doing, I'm enjoying. So I never thought what can be alternative, because what you are doing, if you enjoy that, you generally tend to do good in that. So never thought about that. But if you ask me, I've been very passionate and about playing cricket. So if some opportunity which might have come and I was good enough, I wanted to be a cricketer for that matter. But having said that, there is no regret. Happy what I'm doing today and want to continue doing this and see where we can take Pragati, and we really progress and do Pragati for Pragati.
And you were a batter or a bowler?
In India, we do everything. So nothing is specific. But if given a choice, I would have been a batsman.
Okay. And
Or
when you
better to change now. They don't call better batsman, or so they call better.
when you are not working, how do you switch yourself off and recharge yourself?
See, when you work, I have there are two things which I generally do. Work wise, I try and relax when I'm working as well. So you should not get stressed out, because this is what generally you will keep doing most of the days. So I generally don't get stressed out while working. Uh, and if certain times you get stressed out, so just during a week, if you can switch off for few hours, and then it gets you rejuvenated. So that I do by playing cricket over a weekend or a night match, and then spending time with my family, my kids, uh, generally relieves that stress. So I make a point that I spend some time for game, and then spend time with my family, with my kids, talk to them, and that is how generally it gets relieved if there is a stress which comes with work.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks for your time and all the best for Pragati's Pragati.
Thank you, Palash, and it was great interacting with you. Thank you.